Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Newcastle Free Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the struggling NBC show Constantine. I am one of your hosts, Will, and joining me as always,
Curly
and Rick.
Up for discussion today is the mid-season finale, episode 108, The Saint of Last Resort, and boy, would I ever use that phrase to describe Constantine.
True. Okay.
So, mid-season finale, guys, how do you feel about it?
Loved it.
I liked it a lot too. I just think that they everything kind of struck the right chord for me. And I just and I keep saying this, but I just wish that they had managed this much better from the very beginning in terms of which episodes they showed and how they allowed the story to unfold. And how quickly they actually got into the Constantine character at his best. So I think that there was a lot of wasted time, and that was unfortunate because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah.
Okay,
definitely.
I'm the odd bird out. That's okay. I'm used to it.
Okay.
I think my whole thing goes back to, again, we can't have the three core characters in the same room at the same time ever.
Exactly. And there's always one that's missing, and Manny was missing this week.
Well, Manny was missing, and then we also split the story between an A and B
Right.
story, which is something we've never really actually done on Constantine.
Right.
Well, you see, I think that kind of helped because it kind of sort of it packed every scene because every scene seemed to actually have a certain intensity to it. Because you're right, they did sort of tell two stories at the same time and cut back and forth, which again I liked. Given the medium and stuff, and we already know the characters, so there didn't need to be a lot of characterization involved. And I liked the way the pace of the show, came about, and I liked Zed, being hunted down by the Crusaders, the Resurrection Crusaders. I think I believe it is.
Don't ask me.
And
No, they said it in the episode briefly.
Yeah, and not to jump ahead, but I like very much that obviously it's going to be left on a.
Two cliffhangers that don't even matter. That's just a bit much for me.
I know, but that's unfortunate. But
And then Constantine's cliffhanger doesn't even make sense. I was just like, oh. And then, to make matters worse, I totally saw the first quote-unquote villain of the week. Like after the third time she appeared, I was like, oh, it's this heifer right here. Come on, Constantine. Make it a little harder for me, please.
well, I don't know if they can necessarily make it harder for you sometimes. I think one of the great things about a narrative is when you know from the very beginning this is going to happen, and it's still kind of fun that it does. And I think in this particular instance, you knew where it was going a little bit, but I enjoyed the outcome, and I also enjoyed the way they made. I'm sorry, what was the name? Lamashtu?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the way she looked. She looked like
Her chicken fingers.
that very first German film, and I can't think of the name. I mean, I know it's N.O.
Oh, God.
Noshistro, something like that.
I have no idea, but she has some big fangs.
Right, because the fangs were very much in the front, and his fingers were extremely long. And
she looked better than the vampire on The Strain, that's for sure.
I don't like
She looked like Bozo the Clown.
Wait, are we talking American Horror Story? What?
No. We're talking The Strain. I actually, which Carol Lee watches faithfully.
But that does make sense because American Horror Story is taking place in a carnival.
Yeah, that's why I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, the master, the vampire on the strain, looks like, I mean, somebody from Face Off did his makeup. I mean, it was just every time we see him, it's not scary. I just laugh.
Yeah. The fog and like I don't know, just the aesthetic of this episode just put me in a bad mood. Like we open up and I'm like, finally, a big city, Mexico City. And then we end up in more of a pastoral setting. I'm just like, bait and switch again. Just Constantine just needs to get it together for me.
True, they did, but most of the scenes were shot at night, and it was a little bit
darker.
The fog, though, at the fountain, I was just like, oh, baby, honey, shh. I appreciate what they tried to do because obviously this is a arc right out of the comic books. Mm-hmm. So, well, tinkered with a little bit, but basically. So, I can appreciate that.
I really liked the opening scenes of the church where everything was shot in yellow and red. I thought that was quite nice when they were doing that. I mean, I actually thought that this was a relatively striking episode with a couple little bit of, TV moments, but I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I enjoyed it. And I very much like the fact that Anne Marie or Annie, kind of turns the tables on Constantine. And you do see that coming a little bit, but nonetheless, she uses him like he used Gary Lester, and I think that worked out pretty well. Although I have to admit, I did think excuse me, because I'll never get the pronunciation of this right. That demon towards the end, and I know we're jumping way ahead here. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Givenchy.
The Givenchy, right? Givenchy, sorry, which sounds like a French dessert. I don't
or
understand.
a French designer, Givenchy.
Givenchy. When he first popped up, I looked at Caroline and went, "Is that the chicken?" I thought the chicken had somehow been resurrected by some weird.
Now that would have been awesome.
Side spell. Going, I messed that one up.
That would have actually been a better twist.
Oh my.
Anyway.
Okay. Do you want me to do the recap?
Yeah.
I was going to tell him who wrote and directed this.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay, so this episode was written by Carly Ray, and then it was directed by T.J. Scott. Not familiar with either one of these, but I mean, they're in a set parameter of things that they can and can't do, and I thought that Carly Ray totally kind of really dug into the comic book side of things, as did the designing side of the teams with the monster at the end, Givenchy specifically.
Right.
So I like when they do their homework a little bit.
The giant.
Yeah, I thought actually.
Oh, great!
Actually, they did, because I went back and looked at some of the stuff, and they did. It was just because of the texture. I don't know why I thought that.
No, that's funny. It's like Leg Man.
I won't be able to look at it the same again.
So now you can tell the recap.
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't seem as mean. Okay, you got it. Good.
Recap?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. John and Chaz traveled to Mexico City to do battle with an ancient evil force after receiving a call of sorts from Anne Marie, a member of the Newcastle crew. Zed must deal with the fallout from her past actions, which has returned to haunt her once more.
All right.
Jump
right in then.
In that order. Although we don't really know what Zed's past actions are yet, except that
running away.
Yeah, I know, but something's catching up to her. It's not good.
Mm-hmm. True. So it starts out in a convent in Mexico City. Anne Marie hears whispers, and the other nun said, "Oh, it's just mice, rats." And I read online that when you hear whispers, you run.
Yeah.
Probably.
Not lost, where soul's trying to tell you something.
And when do rats sound like whispers? I mean,
well, in the walls they can.
When they're in the walls.
Really?
Completely. Yes. Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
did not know that.
Yeah, because they scuttle along and scratch.
I've never seen one. Knock on wood.
Well, you didn't grow up in my neighborhood. But no, see, that's actually what I liked right off the bat, and we were saying earlier. I just really liked when they had that shot of the church and everything, and it was like all the yellow and red and the way it was placed. I thought it was a really nice shot. I thought they framed everything pretty well, in this episode, and I enjoyed it from the beginning to the end, just to even look at it. So anyway, so yeah, we did have the church scene, and that sets the whole tone. There's one thing I have to say is definitely if you're cast, right, in a Constantine, if you're cast in a Constantine episode and you're in the first scene, you're going to have a very short day.
It's like Supernatural. You ain't making it out alive, buddy.
Right, you're not making you've got 12 lines and that's it.
Your lunch.
Yep, you are. Okay. And then they cut quickly to the mill house again, and that's where John and Zed's obviously getting quite comfortable, just hanging out, drawing.
Well, she's sketching that the monster.
It took her a long time to finish. I mean, they'd arrived in Mexico by the time she was...
Right.
I didn't even think about that. That's true. They were cut back finally. She was still young, that thing.
I did think that little bit was clever, though, that they kind of was... Because he explained it was because she had touched the angel's heart, and so she was kind of seeing all this biblical Old Testament stuff.
Yes.
But no! Constantine, you were totally wrong.
Yeah. That was actually one of my favorite lines in there too, as well.
Well, maybe that's why she left. Maybe that's why it took her so long to sketch, because she ran out of art supplies.
Well, she wasn't supposed to leave because John tells her that he's going to lock down the mill house with all the protection spells, and just don't leave the building.
And don't wander.
Yes.
She does not know how to follow directions for the life of her.
She absolutely does not. In fact, she might be one of those people that if you want her to do something, you have to tell her the exact opposite.
It makes it seem like they're trying to give us a hint about her age, like early 20s-ish. You know what I mean by the way they kind of characterize that situation?
Right. She's very impulsive, and she's like, yeah, whatever. I'll just sneak out the window here and go out anyway. So, yeah, that's true. But I liked, and that's when Annie shows up in
Anne-Marie.
Right, she shows up with the whole bilocation thing.
You mean astral projection?
Astral projection. I like the bilocation.
I was like, maybe that was a hint towards bisexuality too. Seriously, I was like, why didn't they just call it astral projection like everybody's thinking in their head right now?
Right.
That was actually my first thought too. As soon as they said bilocation, I was like, yeah, I think that's a little bit of a wink. I don't know. But it was kind of funny. And I like Zed. What did you forget about her?
I like how he's like, don't get your knickers in a bunch. And then he's like, oh.
Yeah.
I have to have my knickers in a bunch. Great. That was pretty cool, though, because Zed's just talking to her, and she's just like, oh, my name's Zed, by the way. She really doesn't like people being rude for some reason.
That's true.
Then I guess...
So, well, even before that happened, the reason she's calling is because baby has been stolen. And I hated that they killed the mother. That was just gruesome. But
they didn't kill the second mom. They only killed the first mom because she was actually awake.
Right. I mean, I understood that, but I was just sad.
You didn't have it in the budget for another person in that kitchen.
Yeah, you see? Again, if you're going to be in that first scene, I mean, if you're in the first scene in a hospital bed, you're a red shirt. You're not making it. That's all there is to it.
I did.
Well, then, actually, after all that, we cut back to where the babies are, right? When we see the hands on the twisted cage, when we see Lamashtu's hands on that wrought iron cage that I guess she sort of built, which is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
And she puts the baby in there, and then there's the cut back to the mill house, and John's working on his purification
bowl.
Excuse me. I
should have used a spoon.
Yeah.
It turns water into holy water.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much where he speaks with Zed about, look, you're not coming with us because you need to be on a little R&R, which obviously turns out to not be the case. But,
right.
Because of, she was actually held the angel, pure evil in her hand there for a little while in the last episode, thanks to Manny. So he just wants to make sure she can get her head back together and
which makes sense.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I like the fact that they made a point of she's the only one who speaks fluent Spanish.
I know.
and they're going to leave her behind.
Well, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near any one of Constantine's exes, so she definitely dodged a bullet. Literally.
Well,
Hey-o.
that's a very good point, because they always seem to end up other than alive.
That's true.
But then Chaz blows the horn, and she's like, I guess it's not so private after all.
Right. And then Chaz, and if they don't, and they've got to please address Chaz.
Dude!
I'm sorry, I know it's driving me crazy, and I apologize. It's become my
Your pet peeve.
yes, it's become my fixation with this. I have to know how is he an immortal? Is he, what is he?
He's inhuman.
I almost lost my stuff when I thought that Chaz had transformed the yellow taxi into the little green and white when they pulled up in for just a second.
I was
Oh,
I was just like, what?
I didn't even think of that.
yeah, the little green green VW. That was great. I want one of those. Actually, that's kind of a cool car.
That was hilarious. Anyway.
And anyway, so John actually ultimately, because when as we know, when Annie astral projects or bilocates, she she doesn't have on her habit. So when he sees her, he's kind of surprised to find out that she is his sister. And my understanding here is that she actually took the vows. That she's not just sitting there. She didn't just, put a habit on and show up at this place and say, hey, I'm a nun from whatever order, and please, take me in. But she actually did take the vows. So she actually is a legitimate
That's what confused
wife
me.
of Christ.
Because on a couple of different websites, they said she was disguised as a nun. So I wasn't sure.
I thought she says that she took the vows.
Well, even in the comic book, she does too. So that's what I just thought. I just went with it.
Well, on the rewatch, I did hear her say that.
Okay,
so,
good. That's what I thought as well. I
needed to hear that on the rewatch.
And I tell you what they did, as far as I'm concerned, and a little bit of experience in this zone. They made her relatively plain, so she kind of looked like a nun. They even gave her nun shoes. It was that scene on the porch. She was wearing the nun shoes.
Nun.
Oh,
no, seriously, they do. They're like it is like a part of the habit. Seriously.
Oh, it is. It's a part of the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, you went to Catholic school. You should know.
Yeah. We both do.
Yes. That's what I was saying. I thought that she did a real good job, or they did a very good job portraying her as plain, even though she said some things that were like wrong. But
yeah, not everybody. They might have been Jesuits, honestly. Since Rick's Catholic, he knows what that's about. Because she kisses Constantine, and I'm just like, okay, lady, you're asking for it.
I know. But she's obviously, and that was another part that I thought was really great. Was her relationship with John. I think was a little bit more intriguing. I mean, kind of they all are. Even Gary Lester. But pretty much everyone from Newcastle has their thing. But I think that I kind of liked hers because she seemed to be almost the one who was the impetus to get him into, everything.
She introduced him to the dark arts.
Right, exactly. So I think that was.
But he did come off as a big jerk.
Oh, he always does. That's just constant. It's from being an abused as a child, I guess, is the characterization that I kind of got from the comic books and the show's kind of focusing on. It's that over, compensation.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I mean, I'm skipping ahead, but she was pretty pissed off at him for having slept with her and then sneaking out and going to a bar.
See, that's weird, though, because in the comic books, of course, she's actually, this is the thing about Annie from the comic books, is that she was actually older, chubby, and after that night at Newcastle, she actually got disfigured by the demon itself, but the demon disguised itself as John Constantine to get into her head, so that wasn't really him. And so I was just like, okay, so we're just gonna gloss over this in the TV show.
That would be, but you have to figure that would be a little bit probably too much of the TV show. That would almost be an entire season of its own.
We just need what season 1 should have been? It should have been the build up, like a flashbacks that of like everything that brought them together from Newcastle, because that in and of itself is a very interesting story. Just like the flashbacks, because there's 5 people from the Newcastle crew.
You could have completely set that up that way. That would have actually been a really nice way to set the entire season up, just as a storyline.
Was Chaz a part of it?
No.
Okay.
At least not in the comic books. I don't know how they're doing it on the TV show, but not in the comic books.
Because it's funny that you just mentioned the number because I had written down who was in the group: John, Gary, Anne-Marie, Richie, and some Judith woman. Yes.
And everybody had their thing in the Newcastle crew, and Annie actually happened to be a psychic, and they kind of wiped that away in this episode as well. So I was just like, I wonder why. It's kind of significant for me that she was kind of an older woman, but she was always kind of there for Constantine, and then they just happened to have hooked up that one night, and then Negral kind of uses it to cause chaos. It was just weird, and I was hoping we would get more of a hint of that. That's all.
Yeah, I can see that. Compared to that particular storyline, I can see maybe a little bit of your disappointment in that. But in also when she was speaking to him, when she says, you were 15-year-old, who was upset at his dad and was searching for his mom, and I should have just shagged you there.
Hey,
Of course that's your favorite.
Dang it.
Carol, again. No. But anyways, it does sort of indicate that she's like older and wiser.
She didn't look it though.
No,
she did not look it at all.
So before we unpause, so Anne-Marie was supposed to be fat?
Older and fat and disfigured on interface.
Okay, and then after what happened, the demon... Negral, okay. He disguised himself as John Constantine, and they slept together.
Yeah, and so it wasn't really him that slept with her, but that's what this episode. But he was quiet on that issue, so he's just like, because there was actually two demons in Newcastle. The one John summoned, and then like Negral actually kind of piggybacked up with it. See, it's a long, complicated story. If you didn't read the comics, never mind.
Because I'm baffled. Okay,
you totally have to read that arc at least one of these days. We got 5 weeks because we're back January 9th. So
right. Okay.
Unpause.
No.
So I think then that kind of brings us to Zed. We go back to the mill house, and Zed looks up into the dumbwaiter.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, right, that's true. Chekhov's gun, right? Because she does use it later. But because I asked you this, Carly, did she see anything other than just the bottom of the dumbwaiter?
Did you hear that?
That actually came off pretty cool. I think we should keep that.
I don't know. They didn't really make it clear.
I didn't see anything.
I thought I saw like a scrape up there, but I think I'm overlooking on that. I really just think they just wanted to show you there was a dumbwaiter there.
Well, she heard. Was she hearing things?
Yeah, she heard something, I think, and then she went in and she took a look. I actually like that shot. I like the way it was shot in blue and the way she looked up, and she had this sense of like, oh, cool, kind of thing. And then she went back, and I think you're right. I think that was like a Chekhov's gun thing, because they wanted to say that this dumbwaiter doesn't come out of completely nowhere when she uses it later to escape, kind of thing.
Then she opens the door
to nowhere.
To nowhere, to void.
It reminded me of Star Trek, that Captain Picard, remember? He opens it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Yeah, but see, that's a great scene. That's always a good shot for me. I love it. A door that leads nowhere. That's great.
Oh, that was great. This is just Zed, man. And every time she did something, I was just shaking my head like, this is gonna bite you in the butt, sister.
Girl.
and no, all right, and John told her, right, one, not to leave, right, because he's going to do all the protection spells, she'll be fine.
And she left.
And two, in the episode preceding this, not to actually open that door because they weren't ready for it yet. Don't go down that hallway. You're not really ready for it yet.
I thought that was when she first came to the mill house.
You know what?
Well, I don't know what episode.
Yeah, you can actually place that one as you will. I'm not sure. I just remember him at one point in time saying to her, because they came down and went, wow, this place looks a lot bigger in the inside than it does on the outside. And he goes, well, and they went down the hallway. He goes, no, you guys,
So, yeah, I liked that. This place looks a lot bigger on the inside than the outside. Then we see the door to nowhere.
It's a TARDIS all over. This is all Doctor Who references, man.
Yeah.
The bus to nowhere. It was great. But I liked it better when she actually did go out and gather art supplies for whatever reason.
Yeah, right. She was out there, right, when he shows up, and his name's Eddie.
If that's Eddie. His real name.
That's his real name.
Right.
Eddie, and he goes, so what are you going into a blue period? I was going, okay.
Okay, alarm bells would have went off for me. Okay, I mean, Atlanta's a pretty big town. How does this guy just magically know where I'm at? Like you don't find that suspicious? I find that suspicious.
I would have found it suspicious, but she didn't, obviously.
In the real world, I think there would be bells and charms going off in everyone's head going, wait a minute now.
Pepper spray at the ready.
Right, exactly. But, under the the
TV writing. Mm-hmm.
exactly. You have to move the narrative. So someone has to show up and meet someone somewhere.
Right.
But that was kind of funny. And she took care of him. She took care of him really well. When to you, Carolee, and Lilith, I have the question. When she first touches him and she sees him in like this vault.
It's not an apple. It's just the ashtray the candle that was on the table with the beer.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw a reviewer say that. I was like, no, it wasn't.
What?
No, when she
touches his hand, she gets a vision
in the room
of being in
a room.
The bank vault.
Yeah. Does that? I didn't really know what that.
That's the room that she was locked in as a kid.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good.
But
so
that's what set the alarms off.
I thought that was a darker place. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I was just kind of wondering about that.
But somebody said it was an apple, and I'm like, no, you got to watch it more than once if you're going to review it. Goodness.
Apple. They said it was an apple.
Yeah, you know the little red candle next to the beer. He said it was an apple, and I'm just like, I had to go back and watch. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was a candle. But no, I mean, it would make sense because it, to draw the parallel to what John Constantine was going through. They probably should have done something like that.
True.
Because it is actually kind of sort of connected in the comic book, just a little bit.
Okay.
But we'll get there. So we cut back to what's going on at the shenanigans in the nunnery.
Right.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Another baby has been taken, but the mother did not die because she was asleep.
Oh, well, we skipped past that, actually. The kitchen scene. Where we didn't even get to where he was trying to tell what happened to what took the baby. And so he looks in the thing, thinks it's a mouse. She says it could be from the mouse, and he's like, maybe not.
And that's when he first meets Sister Flirtatious.
I loved it.
I love Sister Flirtatious. That's a great one. And he pulls out his gemstones, and they catch fire. Remember, and they fold them up.
Right, the runes.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, he picks up the runes, throws them up in the air. They come down and they catch on fire.
Well,
and apparently,
and then but I think this is the thing about it. You keep thinking all these spells weren't working, but she shows up after the runes actually catch fire, and she also shows up when he's in that fountain. You see?
Right.
So it's not that the spells didn't work. It's just a little bit of misdirection. I was just like, oh, you tried to be clever. That's nice, Constantine.
Okay. All right.
Well, I heard somewhere that the runes had a spell on them, so the creature could mask its presence.
Mm-hmm. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
So Sister Flirtatious comes in and gives John the business about flirting with a nun, and Chad's like, hey, we only have so much time. He, one of his 6 lines of the night.
Right.
Poor Charles Haverford.
I'll definitely be revisiting that scene on my favorite line, but anyways, that was good. And then that's when they come up to the whole looking for the placenta.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then they segue,
tradition.
to the back of Hugo's yard, who's the husband,
right,
whose child was abducted at the very beginning,
right,
and wife killed.
Right.
And that to me was, for whatever reason, an extraordinarily creepy scene. When he pulled the pear down and it was like, is this human flesh?
That was cool.
That was not cool.
But the blood gush is what killed it, and then it just made it look like a prop.
Yeah, well, I think they kind of went over the top there when the whole, every one of the pears was bleeding and everything else was going on. But I just thought about holding that in your hand and going, picking a pear and holding it in your hand and going, wait a minute, this is human flesh.
So let me pierce it with this knife.
Well, it's Constantine. Come on. He has enough.
He has a flair for the dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the guy comes out with a gun. What are you doing in my yard? Get off my lawn.
I know, really. Get off my lawn. Your pears are bleeding. What do you mean, get off your lawn?
Perfect.
But yeah, that was for whatever reason, that was a scene that kind of made, I guess, my skin crawl. It really did. I don't know why. That was just very to me.
And then John said that it was the baby sending a message. So the baby is alive. The fruit on the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's how he makes the connection to the fact that she isn't actually feeding.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So there's something deeper going on here than just.
Now John knows who the demon is.
Well, has a good inkling. He has to narrow it down.
Well, yeah, he has to narrow it down.
And isn't that the scene too, right? Like right before, I think he pulls the pier down when she's talking about that he left her bed and
they drove there before they got out to dig.
Yeah.
She's like, would you rather me take a vow of silence again?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that made me think a lot less of John.
Really?
Like, hey.
Yeah, but they explain it later. Come on.
I didn't mean for you to see me. Well, no, stop, Sherlock. Nobody expects the other person to be.
And then
they go have a drink.
Exactly. They go into the husband's kitchen. They go into Hugo's kitchen, and they're sitting there drinking tequila. And they start tequila, excuse me. And they start talking about Adam and Eve are Eve's sisters,
mm-hmm.
Right? Of which apparently Lilith, you were one.
It depends on the telling, but yeah, when I looked it up, I was like, actually, I mean, it depends on what source you're taking it from. So I'm assuming they didn't take it from like the Kabbalah, but most of the other stuff did come from the Kabbalah. So I was just like, okay, I'll go with it.
Now, Lilith, see, my understanding. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I just thought it was funny that your name came up first. So he rules out that it's one of Eve's sisters. And why are they evil? And they're evil because Adam proposed to Eve's sisters first, but they turned him down, choosing to rule in hell rather serving man.
Kind of do with Constantine, just saying.
Right. They would rather be queens in hell than to be subservient to men.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little bit kind of close to a biblical structure, I suppose. But yeah, that was an interesting one. And then they find out that now the baby's gone.
Right, because
he gets that phone call.
Right, he gets the phone call.
Right, because he is a police officer himself. So
that's weird because he wouldn't be able to work the case in America. So I found that kind of weird. Because it's his baby and he should be like the number one suspect. Because come on, the husband always did it, right?
That's true.
Oh yeah, they're gonna exactly. Yeah, they're definitely gonna be looking at him before they look at anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, he's out there for 14 years. I think he said he had been a cop. And then there's and so we know that there's another baby out there, which turns out, of course, to be his son's son. So
right, grandson.
So his granddaughter, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, is it daughter?
Yeah, I think so.
Granddaughter. Okay.
Yeah, but that kind of they segued then back to again the second story with Zed, and she meets Eddie in the art supply shop. And she basically gets a little aggressive
and invites him to the mill house.
Yeah,
Yes.
ultimately.
Yes.
So let me see where we go. Then there's Annie and John, right? And they're basically discussing how they can go about capturing or go about the process by which they're going to pull whatever demon it is into the fold and recover the babies.
Well. It was my understanding that John says, okay, there obviously is a link. We have to find.
Well, no, he wanted to know because he's like, okay, he thinks he pissed off. He says, did you piss off a gypsy mate? And that gets him thinking. Right. And they're like, he's like, we're a good Catholic family. I have nothing to hide. And then, he says that his grandma's from Chile and she knows the history of their family. And then they go to visit and she kind of explains about the La Brujera. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when John's like, crap, I don't have a spell for that.
Yeah, obviously they are very ancient and very mean because that's kind of overwhelms John entirely. So that's a problem for him. Although there is the scene in there with Chaz and Annie, and I'm not exactly where it is, but that is when Chaz probably has his best moments.
Oh, that's after the before he goes to the fountain because she stole
Right,
him
yeah,
out. Maybe it's
exactly.
gonna get out of control.
Yeah, and is lighting the they're lighting the candles, and he tells her that, the reason he doesn't get close to people is because he can't do what he needs to do and be close to people.
Mm-hmm.
And Annie sort of, maybe there's like a light bulb that goes off in her head, and she understands perhaps that's why he kind of self-destructed in terms of going out trolling for girls right after they had been in bed together.
Yep.
That's my take.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
And then there is the fountain spell, which is an interesting spell. And did you say,
Were they?
Carolee?
I thought I didn't know what they were. Were they worms?
I thought
that
it
he
was intestines.
Oh, that's even worse.
Okay. Let's go back to the human pears.
I was pretty, like that's what made me think it was like straight up just intestines, maybe animal intestines, but intestines nonetheless. They were so thick and gooey.
I couldn't tell.
Now that I'm thinking about it, that's probably the best explanation, unfortunately, but okay.
Yeah, well, I had worms, question mark.
Well,
so.
there were worms in the bowl, right?
No, maggots.
Maggots? Okay.
Yeah, then that definitely means it was intestines.
Yeah, and then Sister Flirtatious, interrupts.
And then that's when the maggots show up in the purification bowl, and that's how he knows that she is the one.
Yeah.
And starts calling her.
Trying to figure out what her name is so he gets through
Right.
all of them. Of course, it's the last one.
Right. Lilith, Darija, Nahama, and then Lama Stew.
Lama Stew.
Lama Stew. Okay.
And no, and that's when she,
She's
eventually-
going to be in big trouble because she's like really trying to distract him.
and then she turns into the actual sort of vampiress or demon that she is, which I liked. I think she looked really good. I think she was great.
Make it
think
do
that's
good. Mm-hmm.
I think good job. And again, that goes
It's
back
not
to
like labyrinth.
Nakastru. Sorry, I can't pronounce that word. I apologize to everyone, but it's a German classic. It's like a German expressionist film, and it's like one of the first vampire films ever made. And they definitely, if you look at that, you will see that the way her teeth are shaped and the long fingers and nails that she has
Mm-hmm.
are directly taken from that. So I thought that was really cool. So I enjoyed her a lot. I thought she was pretty cool. And then of course that whole scene goes up. She gets him. She's dumping him into the fountain and sort of trying to drown him. And then he pulls out his knife and stabs her. And that cuts us back to Zed once again in a very frenetic pace. Zed and Eddie are at the mill house, and that's when Eddie comes clean and tells her that your father wants you home.
He calls her Mary.
And he calls her Mary. Finally, right, exactly, because that's who. Yeah.
She punched him good though. She's like, "Don't you ever call me that again."
Yeah, don't you? Yeah.
It's like me. Don't you ever call me Carol.
No.
I
Yeah,
hate that name. Yeah. I don't even acknowledge if somebody says Carol, I don't turn around. I really don't.
On a personal note, I can vouch for that. It's very true. Yeah. So
then they go to see the grandma.
Yeah, and this is the part where the script glosses over stuff really quickly because we get into the
you guys would know.
Brajira.
But he did have a cigarette.
Yes, he did have a cigarette.
Cigarette watch.
They get into the Brajira, and obviously they are very formidable. And he, does not. I mean, he is. You see Constantine. Actually, I don't know if scared is the right word, but certainly deeply concerned.
Very concerned.
Yeah, and
because they were supposed to be wiped out, but we find out that they went into hiding instead.
Right, and the grandmother says that her grandfather was actually one of them.
Right.
And so it's her father who took the family and fled, but he fled because he was trying to save them. He wasn't fleeing because he was irresponsible or because he just wanted to be away from whatever was going on. So there's a bloodline that's involved. Although the father himself obviously was not part of that bloodline, or are we to believe that the father was and somehow resisted?
I think he was, And I think the grandfather was trying to get him into the cult, and he didn't want any part of it, so that's why he fled.
Okay.
That's my interpretation.
And that's like, that was, and then we have John and Annie out on the porch. And then that's when he tells her, I don't really have a spell for this. So
right.
These guys,
because they thought that they were wiped out.
But they do come up to hatch the great plan. One of the great plans of all time. I'm sorry. That what we're going to do is we're going to stuff a piece of poultry with Hugo's blood.
And put a glamour spell on it.
Oh, that was the best thing ever. I was like, we're making a chicken bake. This is awesome.
Chicken bake.
Oh, man, I didn't think about shake and bake. That's great. Oh, God. And then while they're actually doing it, while they're actually sitting there and they're actually pumping the blood out, drawing the blood out of Hugo, and putting it into the chicken, that's when Constantine tries to unhatch his plot, where he knows that someone's going to have to deliver it, and he says, "Oh well, I guess I'll get dressed up in women's clothes." And she sits there.
Unlike Gary,
yeah.
Yes, Anne-Marie knows that she will be a sacrifice.
Yeah.
She just go ahead and tell me. You don't have to do any.
Don't insult me.
Yeah,
exactly,
don't insult
kind
me.
of thing, which I like.
I'll be the sacrifice.
How do they know about Gary? Like, did his ghost come to haunt her or something and go, hey, watch out for Constantine? The butt wipe.
I know, but that's kind of what I was thinking too. But I'm assuming there's an occult underground. It's like I don't know. It's like, hey, did you hear what happened to Lester? Like kind of thing. Because it finally made her way to her, and she went, "Oh, great, yeah, I know what's going on." Because she was nowhere near the the universe when
Gary died.
When
he became a
demon, right?
Yeah, became a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe that's just what he has been doing. Before Newcastle, so maybe that's just one of his things.
It's possible.
I don't know.
I mean, as in any narrative, there's a lot you have to fill in on the outside yourself. And in this one, obviously, the comic book, it's like a cross. It's a cross between the comic book and the narrative that they're trying to tell in the TV show. No matter how you try and not make it that way, I'm beginning to see that it kind of sort of has to be that way, which is But anyway, so let's see, what do we have here? Oh, I guess
we go back to Zed.
We go back to Zed at the mill house,
Right.
And she's having her own trouble.
Eddie's tied up, and did he say he was a crusader, or did she ask? I'm not sure.
Spilled his guts, basically.
Okay. And they found her because they are believers.
Everywhere. They have like a network of spies, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Zed's father locked her in her room as a child, or that particular.
They're actually going there with this storyline because it is weird and incestuous and creepy as hell in the comic books, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just like,
yeah.
They'll probably tone it down a bit, but you get the gist.
I would think they would have to tone it down unless HBO wants to pick it up or something.
So we'll probably find out later why she was locked in her room.
Yeah, we're dealing essentially.
See, I don't know why she was. So.
We're dealing with a cult, and she's sort of a
virgin vessel.
Yes, exactly, the virgin vessel that is very important to them for a bunch of reasons, which we will find out if we have the opportunity and time to do so. And then, and you can tell their commitment because immediately,
Michael and a woman,
Eddie.
come in and
they shoot him and just say, okay, we're done with that.
She's like, I'll kill him. They're like, we'll do it for you. Bang!
I know, right?
I'm so sorry. And I'm like, are you really? Are you really?
That always, if that's your only card to play, you know what I mean? It really kind of takes it right out of your hand if you sit there and say, okay, if you come near me, I'm going to kill your friend. I'll kill him. Bam, he's dead. Oh, well, All right. Lord, tough neighborhood. Anyways, so she's looking bad, mostly because, once again, she not betrayed, that's a strong word. She didn't follow instructions, and she took off and left the building when she didn't need to.
That's what I got out of it. The protection spell was no longer because she left the mill house.
And after Eddie, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happens. right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's broken from that point on. And then after Eddie gets shot, right? We go. That's when John and Annie have their little
conversation.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart. Which we'll come to later because it's one of my.
Mm-hmm.
It's on my list.
But that's and we've spoken of it before. That's exactly their relationship is kind of laid bare right there, or as best as we could. And then there's Annie alone.
With the chicken.
With the chicken. I'm sorry, I was having a hard time not laughing and then being scared at the same time because I don't know. That was kind of difficult. But and then again,
one question: how did John know to bring this icon of Pazuzu? Because he had no idea what demon he was up
I think
against.
that has the potential to call any demon he wants, I think is what they were trying to say.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, it's like a generic concept where he can pull anything he needs from it.
Oh,
as opposed to something specific to Pazuzu.
Okay.
I think that's so
I was like, how do you know to bring that?
It's all he has, like they're all like names that he has. Although you might think so, you don't know. In the mill house somewhere, there's like a name for each one of those. But and then again, keeping up the frenetic pace that they had, then we cut back to Zed, who makes her escape in the dumbwaiter. So Chekhov's gun is and then there ensues the scene I loved.
Well, me too.
The fight in the hallway with the blonde woman, who obviously is nameless, one of the Resurrection Crusaders, or Crusaders. I don't know if they actually use Resurrection. And that's a pretty good fight. I mean, Zed does a really nice move. She slams her up against the wall pretty hard. I kind of like that.
I did too.
And then she dumps her out that door. But this is what I was thinking when she dumped her out the door. What? Since no one knows what's out there. No one knows, or at least Zed doesn't know, right? I mean, maybe that's like a good thing. Maybe like maybe that girl's gonna come back as like the greatest powerful demon of all time.
Is it explained in the comics? Is it even in the comics?
That I'm not sure, because remember, I haven't read all 300.
Yeah, I know what. I don't know that it is. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I haven't
actually read the newer Constantine comic book of the New 52. Like, I'm just more familiar with Swamp Thing and Hellblazer. That's actually what they took a lot of this stuff out of, which I'll get to in the Easter eggs. But yeah, so I don't know. It might have just been a Star Trek reference, honestly.
Yeah.
It could have been, actually. It absolutely could be. But I think a door leading nowhere is like an open-ended narrative kind of concept.
I was the trash out. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So, anyways, she's gone. But I kind of like that scene. I thought that was fun. I thought that was pretty cool.
Right.
What do you get?
Well, they follow. You have a problem pronouncing. I can't pronounce this name. They follow Lama Shustu? Yes.
Okay.
They follow her to the sewers because that's where she's keeping the babies.
Yeah, like he's trying to shoot the thing, and I'm like, dude, that's not gonna work. After she shows up, they're sacrificing the chicken baby, and she shows up, she takes the baby, and they're like, it's working, and then freaking the cop, man.
Hugo jumps around the corner and does the one thing he knows: shoot.
Well, he did offer Anne Marie the gun, and she took it.
Yeah, she took it. She was like, I'll use it.
I'll take it. And obviously it's useful for her later.
They're tromping through the nasty old sewer. Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Ugh.
All three of them. Like, Chaz just finally decides to join the fray.
Yeah, Chaz had his usual type of, I guess, other than his moment when he was talking to Annie when they were lighting candles and he was trying to explain a little bit about John's character. Chaz had his usual episode where he said, you go over here and do something.
This is 45 minutes, we'll be back.
And Chaz runs over there, and it's like when they're in the tunnels, like is up there or wherever, and they're behind Austin, he yells out, John! And it's like, okay, well done, Chaz.
It's like all the actors have other jobs, and so they have to, like make these, things where it's like, okay, you gotta shoot by yourself, but don't forget to sound convincing.
I know, it's like, I swear, he probably, I have to look at this, I have to look at this in more detail. He might actually sit there and say, okay, I have exactly a half an hour to give you guys today, so my scenes have to be shot by themselves or, really quickly.
Very possible.
One take.
Very possible.
But
one take, and then I'm out of here, guys.
It doesn't matter how it looks, whatever goes on, as long as the lines are read properly, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So, anyways, they're down there. I actually kind of liked, again, see, in terms of the way it was shot, the director and everything. To me, it was darker. It was shot in the tunnels. It was shot in the mill house. It was shot at night. And, the church was, kind of stylistically developed around the colors of red and yellow. So I kind of I like that. I really like them being in, down in the tunnels. But then, I like brick and confined spaces. I don't know why. But anyway, so that's, I did enjoy that. When they get to the confrontation between Lamashtu, when they get to the confrontation with Lamashtu,
John wants to know why she needs the babies, because she usually eats the babies.
Right. He says that earlier when he's at the fountain. He says usually she feeds. She's a voracious feeder, and it's not like
because
her in
they're
any way.
Glorified vampires.
Goodbye.
Exactly. So she's obviously kidnapping instead of eating, and she's doing it for a reason. And it turns out that it goes back to Hugo's grandmother, who tells us the story of La Brugère.
They want. They made her a deal. She takes the babies, and they will expand her domain on Earth.
Yes. So we're going to expand. And at first he says in hell, because he doesn't think that there would be any domain for her to have necessarily on Earth. And she says no on Earth, because they're going to completely collapse the boundaries. And then John says, great, then this is definitively the rising darkness. Now we know what the entire plan is. You guys want Earth entirely. It's not just this one particular issue and everything else. You just want to sit here and feed upon this planet. Perhaps, I'm extrapolating a little. But, they're moving in that direction. Then he takes out his Pazuzu little thing and drops it into the water.
Takes her back to hell.
Yeah, kind of flushes her away. And no pun intended.
No pun, since they are in the sewer.
And then we see, since I can't pronounce, the
Avanci.
I'm just going to call him Shake and Bake. He pops up and he's looking pretty mean. But this is the interesting thing to me is that
you can't pronounce his name. I can't pronounce
the
other.
Perfect. See, I told you together we make like one mind. But no, there's just so I think what happens though here is that John admits to not having, and he says no one has a spell against the La Brugère, and he says he can't stop the Avanci. So those are two aspects of hell that are rising that he's powerless against.
In one episode, yes.
Yeah, in one episode. And then, of course, as we know, the
gun comes in handy.
And then we cut, right, we do.
Well, they were leaving with the babies.
Yeah.
Then they hear crying.
And Annie hands off one baby to Chaz, which is Chaz's job entirely, just to take something and leave the scene. It doesn't matter what it is, a baby, a baton, it doesn't matter. It's just a baton, it doesn't matter. Just give it to Chaz, and then he'll walk off the scene. But
they hear, Anne-Marie and John hear a third baby, or what they thought
was the third baby.
Right.
And they turn around, that's when they see, right. And then we cut again.
Back to
Zed, who's walking around, who's just dumped this girl out of the door to nowhere, managed to handcuff Eddie to a rail.
Right.
And this guy who looks like he's 20 pounds overweight and balding manages to sneak up behind her and nail her with a shot in the neck to knock her out.
Mm-hmm.
Which is okay, and it moves the narrative forward, but I wish there was more to it than that.
A little bit more action.
Yeah, I wish there was some kind of tussle and something weird happened and she slipped accidentally or something. Because I didn't want to give him any credit at all.
Oh, goodness. So, the Avanci. Why didn't John have a spell? They were just creatures
before biblical
ancient.
times.
Yeah, they're just too strong. It's out of his league.
And plus, he thought they were extinct. Like, so if people think they're extinct, they're not going to make spells for it.
Yeah, that's actually right. That's true. That's another good point.
They thought they were extinct. He thought Well,
He tells her at the beginning that they got wiped out in the last flood.
oh, yes, 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 that's right. Okay, okay. So,
We got two
John's
cliffhangers.
so John's there, Anne Marie's there, she has a baby, and obviously she wants to save the baby, but they can't move because the Avungi will attack no matter what. So what does she
They
do?
were far enough to get away. I mean, the ladder to the sewer was like 30 feet away. It was just a bit much. I'm like, okay. She just wanted to shoot John for cheating on her at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, nobody will ever know it. I got away with it.
Yeah, it turns out she's a great nun. I gotta tell you,
Oh!
she, she's well, that was, like when we were growing up as kids, you had a little spelling contest or something, you got the word wrong, they shot you. So I mean, it was no big deal. I mean, it was just.
It was a ruler, really.
So it was. No, that was the only thing I liked about that, and I know it was probably overdone, and I think Carolee said the same thing. You said, did she need to really shoot him? When we were talking about it, and
She could have just bolted and left him there.
Right.
Without shooting.
But she wanted to make sure, I guess, that the Avunchi had something to munch on.
I love how she turns his words back on him. She's like, no sacrifice too high for the greater good. Right, John Constantine? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he could have created a diversion or something so she could have gotten the baby out.
It could have been more heroic on his side, I guess, but what she did, and I think it was just the whole karmic thing in a way, because he looks at her and he says, well, you learn quick, love, or you're a fast study, love.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is kind of what he did to Lester, and kind of what is known a little bit for in the comic books, to manipulate people into situations where, he kind of is one or two steps ahead, and he ends up walking away with his skin and alive, and other people suffer the consequences, or at least the immediate consequences. So I think I think it worked because of that the tables were turned on him, and also because she was the one who originally got him in, as they said earlier, into the occult. So she's in a weird way his teacher.
Right.
To a degree. So I think that all kind of came together in a nice circle.
Yeah, she said he was her great failure, so I feel like she's rectifying that situation on top of all of that, too. Because he's basically, if you look at it, he is a monster that's kind of out of control.
Yeah.
But then didn't, I thought I heard John, I'm not sure what episode, say, one human sacrifice to save the world, we're going to have to make sacrifices.
He didn't mean him. Constantine never meant him.
You realize I'm not talking about myself when I say
exactly.
This. Someone's got to go.
I don't want it to be me.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's kind of like a lot of his MO, actually. He gets in those situations, I think, a bunch of times, which is why he carries the ghosts around with him a lot, especially in the comic books. He carries his ghosts with him.
A ghost?
No, ghosts, plural.
Oh.
Which is Lester and all these different people who have been around him who have died.
Oh.
And, because of the circumstances he put them in, hoping that perhaps they wouldn't die, but the circumstances demanded that it was very possible that they would, and it turned out that they had to.
Right.
So it's like, again, it's that line you walk between, were you being, intentionally cruel or intentionally manipulative, or were you actually just trying to find a better way out, and this was the only possible way because you were backed into, a corner. Mm-hmm. And, Constantine always runs that, fine line. And anyway, so we're stuck at the end with
Constantine with a
gunshot wound, and
in the stomach,
and Zed, who's been knocked out and abducted by the Crusaders.
Right.
And Chaz is probably driving his cab somewhere. We don't know, with the other baby. Chaz is a dad. so I guess that's that's where we are. And I thought, again, for a cliffhanger, I mean, I kind of want to watch the next one now.
Right.
So I enjoyed it. I just wish, again, that they could have, keep saying this, and I apologize for repeating myself, but I wish they had just managed the episodes in the way they aired them better.
Well, if it makes you feel better, we got a 25% jump in the ratings
Oh, good.
We went from a point 0.8 in the demo to a point 0.1, which is about 4% in total viewers. So like last week it was like 3 million, almost. No, this week it was 3,003,000 viewers. Last week it was 3,169,000. So I mean we're steadily growing, and we saved about 77% of Greed lead-in, which is a lot of networks do look at that. I think it's kind of archaic, but that, I mean, all the good statistics are, it's good for us.
Yes.
So I think that's cool. And they also didn't drop from the half hour to half hour ratings, meaning nobody turned the channel in between 10 and 10:30. They just watched the episode straight through. So that's pretty cool.
That is.
That's excellent, actually.
So, I mean, I don't, like I said, everybody, like, there's been more and more evidence suggesting that it's always meant to have been 13 episodes. Angelica Celea had done an interview, and she said she was only contracted for 13 episodes. So, And Charles Haverford also did an interview, and he says he's kind of almost not worried about the fate of the show. He thinks they have a good shot at a second season. So
on Twitter, they have #SaveConstantine.
Oh yeah, we've had that for a couple of weeks now, and it's gotten a lot of traction and a lot of press.
Yes.
There's tons of articles about it all over the internet, and that's good. So I think that now that people kind of the thing about this show is that people seek this show out. They don't just watch it because it's on. Like their +3 ratings and their live +7 ratings always go up. So that tells you that people watch it, but it's Friday night at 10 o'clock. I mean, in the demo, the 18 to 49, but specifically the 18 to 34, people are out on a Friday night. The movie, the club, dinner, having, interpersonal communications with their significant other. So it's like all the other stuff is good, though.
Right. No, I mean, I always recorded shows on Friday nights. I mean... Now I'm glad Nielsen is taking that into account now.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the grade.
Grade, Rick?
I gave it an A. I liked it.
I gave it an A as well. I liked it a lot. I just want the group together.
You want Chaz to be hanging out with Zed and everybody?
Yes.
There you go.
I gave it a B-.
B-? You're hard.
Yeah, but that's okay. I was the odd duck out when I gave last week's episode an A, so.
Scene of the night. Anyone?
I'm sorry. Scene of the night.
Scene of the night. Mine was the flesh fruit scene.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't recognize that.
Ugh.
Try enabling the server connection.
All right. Apparently my phone's on off. Sorry, guys. My bad.
Grief.
My bad.
Tell Siri to shut up.
I am. I apologize deeply. Okay. Where were we? Scene of the night?
Scene of the night. Scene of the night. Mine was the flesh fruit scene.
Oh, God.
The bloody pears.
Like, why'd you bring the bloody pears up?
You're going to give poor Rick nightmares.
I know. I'm telling you right now. I'm off fruit now for the rest of my life. Okay.
Just pears.
Yeah, that's true. The scene that I liked the best was actually I like the fountain scene because I like Nosferatu. I really like the vampire. I like the way they presented her and stuff. And that's that was the name of the German expressionist film that I was trying to come up with earlier. So, but that I really liked that scene a lot because I thought that was fun. I thought it was kind of cool the way. Although I have to admit, Lilith, that the fog was a little bit much. But other than that,
I was kind of questioning the fog.
Yeah,
myself.
but isn't that something about the whole Dracula mystique?
Yeah.
Like a fog, when the vampire shows up.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
crows. Yeah.
Huh.
And
So-
bats.
and I admit that was like probably the only cheesy moment, but I liked it, and I just enjoyed the whole thing because I thought it was just kind of a fun ride. So.
Lilith, what do you think?
I I think it had to be when Annie shot Constantine, just because like it's just she could have done it for so many reasons, and it just gets me to wondering, and they're all valid, quite honestly, at this point.
Right.
And it sets it up for like what it does make you wonder. Well, is Chaz gonna save him? Is Zed gonna get a vision and she's kidnapped? Like, how are they gonna work these two stories together? Because it's a two-parter. You know, it's Saints of Last Resort's part 1. When we come back, it's part 2. So obviously these stories have to weave together, and I'm curious to see how they're going to bring it all together.
You know, I try not to watch previews, but sadly enough, I can't help myself. They actually previewed the winter, I don't know.
Finale?
The premiere.
Yeah, the premiere.
Oh, premiere, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was shocked because all of the shows that I watch, that's it. No.
Well, it's because they're coming back sooner than almost every show. They'll be back January 9th.
Oh.
So most of my shows aren't coming back till like the last week of January.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that's why it's going to be pretty fresh in people's minds. And fun fact, they are streaming all of the episodes on NBC.com /Constantine. If you're interested, if you've missed any, if your cable provider doesn't provide it to you on demand.
That's
So
good.
if you're interested in catching up, there's your chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good chance.
Yeah. So, line of the night?
Ooh. I have 2. Is that okay?
Yeah,
That's okay.
it's fine.
Okay. I always figured that one of us would flee to Mexico. I thought there would be tequila involved or skinny dipping. And then
there was tequila involved.
Yes. My other one was Anne-Marie. She said, I should have shagged you. Instead, I introduced you to my world.
Great. So you're fleeing to Mexico, which I think that's right out of your life, isn't it? That whole tequila and skinny dipping thing.
Wow. This explains so much now. Thank you, Rick. Very illuminating.
Okay, well, I guess you know where we're heading in this one. Can I go? Because I'm going to follow.
Go
I thought there were a lot of great lines.
Oh, there were tons.
I liked it when Sister Flirtatious came in, and Annie looked at me and said, "You can't even turn it off around a woman married to God."
That was one of my favorites too, definitely.
I kind of laughed. And the other one was, and this is just one of those things that's like a lead-in line somehow, because you want to go, and then what happens? When I think they're getting close to the pear tree thing there, and she says, you know, it's not just the sex and the seance. And I go, okay. I mean, if you take that out of context, it has a lot of meaning. But so I had a lot of fun with this episode, obviously. I think, you did too, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I thought that Constantine by far had the best lines of the whole episode. So many of them were his. But I think I like the beginning where he's like, all right, why don't you do a bloody crossword or something, would you? That
was funny.
Constantine. Like, he has to, like, make it sound sarcastic. He doesn't want to show that he actually cares. So it's just like... And also, every time he says bloody, that's the Constantine drinking game, take a shot. Or love or bloody.
I love.
You'll be wasted. I did that in the second rewatch.
I love that he says love. My love.
So, most memorable moment of the night?
Who wants to go?
My most memorable moment of the night, and it's the Star Trek. And it's tied in to, it's the Star Trek sort of shutout, I guess, because I didn't even think about it, but now that you mention it, Lilith, it is that Picard episode that, she opens the door and there's a hallway and there's nothing out there. For some reason, that fascinates me. I'm sorry.
I have the same thing.
Do you?
I actually do.
Oh, that's why you hit me. Okay. I should know better by now. Every time you hit me, that's like, I like this part. Okay.
Lilith?
This is a toughie, but I have to say, when they summon Panzuzu, I like the effects for it, the green bluish light, and it sucks you off into the portal.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
like some of the best special effects they've had next to the angel reveal of last week. It's definitely some of the best effects that they've had.
That is cool.
Oh, so character of the night?
Character, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I'm going with Anne-Marie too.
Mm-hmm.
And Anne-Marie Flynn.
Oh, okay.
Let's make sure we get Flynn in there.
Sister Flynn!
For some reason, that makes it more intense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess basically.
Mhm.
Not too much to choose from, honestly.
That's true. Best action? Anyone?
Well, for me, it was the fight with Zed and the blonde girl from the Resurrection Crusaders in the hallway. I just love the way Zed just slammed her against the wall. That was great. That was pretty good. And then she dumped her out
Oh,
again
wait.
into the same doorway. Sorry,
That was mine. I was
scene.
going to say that.
Well, again, while you were hitting me during that scene, now I know.
I liked it when she pushed her out to the doorway of nowhere.
How do I miss that signal every time you hit me? I'm going, this is a good one. This is a good one. This is a good one.
I think the best action, even though it was kind of stiff, it had to be Zed taking down Eddie. Like, they're trying to make her seem like, you know, a bit of a kick butt chick, and they're building on it, but, you know.
She's no Olivia Dunham.
Exactly. But she might get there.
Maybe.
High standard from you.
True. Character interactions.
Well, in
Maybe I should
Annie and John.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much unanimous.
Yeah.
Per usual.
I mean, in a bunch of different scenes, you know, I especially liked it actually when, you know, they intimated, they basically told you that she seemed to get him into the whole occult thing in a bigger way and put him into the scene.
Well, he said specifically, John says to Anne-Marie it was his fault at Newcastle, but then she later replies, well, it's actually my fault too because I taught you the occult.
Right.
So.
And the picture that she used to do the bilocation, astral projection. I thought that was a really nice touch too. It's like, oh, it's cringeworthy. It's like looking back at your high school pictures.
Think of it that way. It's good.
Oh, goodness.
Okay.
Theories?
And what's next?
Theories. Oh, wait, shock.
Shock?
Shock.
Oh, biggest surprise or shock of the night?
Yeah, I just, actually, for me, I kind of saw something up, between Constantine and Annie. I guess I should have, but I didn't expect Zed to get the whole needle in the neck thing.
Really?
I guess I knew that was going to sort of come. I just didn't, it was a shock. Actually, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's a disappointment because I really wanted that to be more of a tussle or something. So I guess it's like a sort of a reversal of shock because maybe I knew it was coming. I knew obviously we had a cliffhanger, so it was going to have to work on both storylines.
But I
just thought that it would be more than just him sneaking up, and especially that guy. Couldn't have been someone ferocious.
Yeah, especially since earlier you said that she took on Eddie, and then she took on the nameless woman.
Right, and then she gets nailed by this middle-aged, balding guy who, looks like he probably couldn't run in 100 yards.
Mine was when John got shot.
I think mine had to be basically that they're actually back to taking episodes directly from the comic books and doing a pretty good job of it too. I like that because, the South American warlock story is actually a thing that does contribute to the rising darkness in the comic books. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like, okay, we're getting there where we're really starting to unravel the mystery of the season's big bad.
So the comic book fans are getting happy, they're happier.
I definitely think so.
Again, we touched on this as well. If they had put this type of episode at the beginning, I think we would have had more viewers.
Yeah.
I think I do too.
If we would have focused on the Newcastle crew just in general, like if we had an introduction to everybody, like episode after episode, and we kind of weave the flashbacks about what happened, and I think it would have done a better job of fleshing the character of Constantine out.
Right.
And you have the perfect vehicle because you have a single event that can be seen from 5 different viewpoints. And then you get the 5 different characters that are involved in Constantine's life. And then you have all the offshoots of that and the other things and all the possibilities of that. And it still would have kept it all very pinpoint upon the rising darkness. And I think that would have been a great way to go about it. Unfortunately, we're not. Yeah, exactly.
We're going to say the same thing. Alas, we don't work at NBC.
Yeah. Okay, I think that brings us to villain of the week.
No.
I mean, villain of the villain. I mean, which is Lamashtu, but obviously though, but it's like everyone. It's Lamashtu, the Bergera, and Shake and Bake, the Invanchi.
The
I
Invanchi.
mean, they're all there because like we got a bunch of demons that are like rising up now in like a sort of
I like that.
cohesive manner.
Yeah, I like the fact that now the ancient demons are rising.
Yeah.
And Constantine doesn't have any spells for them.
I think that means it's time to bring Papa Midnight back.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
That's right. We gotta have Papa Midnight. We're gonna have to have some, yeah.
All right, back to New Orleans. Woo!
You gotta like it. Or Chaz is gonna turn into a character none of us anticipated.
Oh God.
Because his still out there as like a loose cannon with his, ability to heal the way he
He's
does.
the palate cleanser, I guess. I don't know what the heck to do with Chaz. I don't think they do either.
Yeah.
Kind of obvious.
I don't know. Especially since y'all said he wasn't in the comics.
Well, he
Well, no,
was,
he
but
is.
not
Oh,
like
he is.
this.
He is, but he's not he doesn't have the ability that he has here. So if you had known Chaz from the comics in that very first one where he gets the electric cable right through his chest, you're thinking, wow, he's dead.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Chaz in the comics would not have survived.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, right. And then when
They made Chaz a red shirt? What?
I know, yeah, exactly. That's what I thought too. Wow, jeez. But okay, so I guess we got anybody have any predictions or theories on what's
I do. I mean,
Okay.
It's not, I take it back. I don't think it's Manny. I definitely think they're going to stick to the comic books and have Zed be Constantine's downfall. Now that I see that they're actually really trying to go there with the comics, I really think that that's what's going down.
Huh.
I think I would have to agree with that. I think that it's looking a lot more like if they're going to, get more detailed about Zed and they're going to do it through the comic book mythology or source material, I think that's probably going to be her, who's going to be the one who's the downfall of it all.
And I think that the Resurrection Crusaders tie into the Brujeria and all that other stuff as well. So it should be a fun last couple round of episodes, honestly.
Yeah, it really should.
That's true. And hopefully they'll change their mind.
Well, no, I don't even care if we don't get extra episodes. I just want a season 2 at this point.
Right. I do too. Even if it's, they have to put it on Netflix.
Well, we had no new news on the Twitter front, but if you would like to live tweet with us when we come back January 9th, what's our Twitter?
Our Twitter is the Newcastle Crew.
And you can find us on Facebook under the same name. More specifically, is the Newcastle Crew, the Constantine podcast.
Yes.
So you can leave messages, theories, predictions, questions, comments, suggestions, concerns, and we'd love to read them. So I think that just about does it for us on the discussion of episode 108, The Saint of Last Resorts, Part 1.
This is Carolee, Lilith, and Rick signing off. And remember, beware of all doors at the end of a hallway.